How's it going, everybody, and welcome to my channel. In today's video we're going to be going over a Nahida main DPS build guide. Now I know what you're probably thinking, Nahida is more of a support, not really a main DPS. And yes, you would be correct on that front. However, she is an Archon, and most of the Archons can actually be built for DPS as well as support. So for you crazy Nahida fanatics out there, this main DPS build guide is going to be for you. So going over our kit, there's a few things that we have to keep in mind when we're building here for main DPS. One of those being that you don't necessarily want to go all into Elemental Mastery, because you do want to have a decent bit of attack. One of the things that is nice about Nahida is that her base attack is 298, roughly around the 300s range, and so running attack percent on her is going to actually be relatively effective. However, keep in mind that Elemental Mastery is still going to be very important on her, because mainly what we're doing with her as a main DPS is going to be doing a combination of reaction damage as well as just basic multiplier damage. Tip is that if you are running multiple pyro characters with Nahida, it's going to further increase the damage bonus given to her elemental skill, which is actually going to be very nice. And plus the burn reaction isn't actually going to be too terrible if you are using Nahida as the one doing the reactions. An alternative to running like extra pyro characters would be running extra electro characters, which will basically increase the interval that her elemental skill triggers at, thus increasing your personal Nahida's damage, as well as giving you access to the nice spread reaction, which does a pretty good additive bonus to your damage, and it's actually slightly higher than how much aggravate gives you. And so for characters that I think are going to be good with Nahida are going to be any type of like sub DPS type of character that can basically apply like their element very fast to outpace Nahida, considering that you're wanting Nahida to be the one triggering stuff. And so for example, characters like Xingqiu can be good as an example because they do have so much application that it basically outpaces Nahida. Characters like Fischl are also very good, especially if you have C6 Fischl. C6 Fischl is basically going to constantly keep Electro applied to characters, and it's going to be extremely good to have. You can also make like a Toma work, kind of similar to Xingqiu, except his application is a little bit lower than Xingqiu's, so you might run into a little bit of problems with pyro application. For artifact pieces, what you're going to want to run as a main DPS is either a crit damage or a crit rate hat. Choosing between crit rate or crit damage is going to depend on what weapon you choose. If you have a weapon that's focused around like crit damage, for example, choose crit rate. If you have one focused around crit rate, I would focus on one with crit damage, something like that. And if you have like an attack based weapon or something like that, I would personally actually switch that instead to an Elemental Mastery hat, just because Elemental Mastery is going to give you a little bit more benefit than if you were running more of a crit build. Then for Timepiece, I would try to get an Elemental Mastery Timepiece with like some good attack percent substats. That's basically going to be your best option on there. But alternatively, you can do kind of the reverse with a attack Timepiece with some Elemental Mastery substats and crit stats. I think that would be a good option as well. And then for the Goblet, obviously go Dendro damage is going to be extremely good on her. So for artifacts to use with Nahida, I think Wanderer's Troupe is going to be a standout option, considering that it gives you 80 points of Elemental Mastery right here. As well, the 4-piece increases your charge attack damage by 35%, which is going to be pretty good. But personally, I think a better set is going to end up being the Deepwood Memories or Gilded Dreams set. The Deepwood Memories is very good because it does give you some extra Dendro damage bonus, and also decreases Dendro resistance when your elemental skill or burst hits opponents, and Nahida only does elemental skill damage, so it's only going to apply to that, but it's going to basically decrease Dendro resistance and also give you like some more like Dendro rated reaction damage. This is basically buffs like your spread damage. It also buffs like your bloom damage as well, so definitely something very good right here. And then the Gilded Dreams is just going to be overall good on her, just if you are running Nahida as the only Dendro character in the team, which I would recommend, because you can get like 150 points of Elemental Mastery from the 4-piece of this, on top of the 80 points you're getting from the 2-piece, so very good. If you want something a little bit more main DPS focused, I would actually kind of recommend using the Shimenawa's Reminiscence set, because the 2-piece does give you attack, and then also the 4-piece right here, when casting an elemental skill, If the character has 15 or more energy, you lose 15 energy, and normal charge and plunging attack damage is increased by 50% for 10 seconds. And since Nahida does have some very good uptime on her burst, you're actually going to be able to utilize this quite well, and I think is actually going to be one of the better main DPS sets to run on here. Alternatively, if you don't want any energy issues, you could run like the Retracing Bowglide set or the Heart of Depth set, and I think you could get kind of a similar effect. Although I would honestly recommend going with the Wanderer's Troop set over Heart of Depth just because that's more centered around Nahida's kit. But then for weapon choice, we want something with either a lot of EM, a lot of attack, or a lot of like crit stats, for example. So there's a few options that we have. Of course, the best in slot option regardless is probably going to still be 1000 Floating Dreams, which is her best in slot weapon. The reason that this weapon is still going to be probably the best, even regardless of these other options, is just because of how good its passive is on Nahida. So out of the 4-star options, the Widsith is an excellent choice to run, just because its passive is very nice for increasing your stats that are very good on Nahida. That being like the extra attack increase, which is going to be very valuable, extra elemental damage, which can be utilized very well, and extra elemental mastery, which can be utilized very well, and also give you increased like reaction damage. Now the one thing about this is that you are going to have to like swap off the field with Nahida. Mampamare is also a very good DPS option. And the reason behind this is because it gives you some extra elemental mastery. It's got a very high base attack, so you can run attack percent at a higher efficiency. And then the passive on it gives you extra elemental damage bonus when you trigger elemental reactions. And you can get like up to 32% damage bonus off of this at R5. So it definitely can give you quite a bit of damage. I just want to mention Dodoko Tails right now because this could actually be a pretty decent weapon to use as well. It gives you like a low base attack, but you do get a bunch of bonus attack percent. So it is very nice on there. Plus, if you have this at R5, which you should if you did that event, you're going to get extra normal attack hits on opponents, increase charge attack damage by 32% for 6 seconds, and then charge attack hits on opponents increase attack by 16% for 6 seconds. So in addition to charge attack damage, you're getting some extra attack, so could be pretty good on Nahida. Wandering Evanstar is a upcoming weapon, I think, and it's actually going to be pretty good on her as well. It comes with Elemental Mastery. It does have a little bit lower base attack than Mampamare, but then its passive, the following effect will trigger every 10 seconds. The equipping character will gain 24% of their Elemental Mastery as bonus attack for 12 seconds. So that's just a flat buff basically. So 24% of your Elemental Mastery points are going to be converted into attack, and with nearby party members getting 30% of this buff for the same duration. So this is also boosting out your team's attack as well, so can be very good. Now out of the 5 stars, Skyward Atlas is going to be an excellent option to use on Nahida, especially if you are going for a high attack build. It has the highest base attack for all catalysts in the game, and then you get bonus attack percent right here at 33%. So it can be pretty good. The passive increases your elemental damage, and also normal attacks trigger these Favor of the Clouds, which deal some damage over a certain amount of duration. This weapon I think is honestly going to be very good if you have artifacts that are already rolling into like attack percent already. Like if you have a bunch of attack percent like stub stat rolls, something like that, on like your Elemental Mastery Timepiece already, this could actually be something to consider as an option if you have one of these. Prayer to the Sacred Winds is also a pretty good option just because it gives you a good amount of like crit rate, which is going to be very good on Nahida, especially if you are running her as a main DPS. She does get some from her Elemental Mastery, however, it's not really that much. Like you have to have a large amount of Elemental Mastery to even get like roughly 10% crit rate, so it is a little bit of a buff, but still, the crit rate on this is very nice. The Memory of Dust is going to be a pretty viable option if you are running her in a party with like shielding characters, being that Zhongli, Layla, Diona, any of those characters pretty much. You could even run this with like a Toma as well, because Toma has a shield. It's going to give you a large amount of attack, plus then the passive increases your attack whenever you score hits on opponents. And that's going to give you like 8% per stack if you're protected by a shield, so definitely pretty good. And then Kagura's Verity is going to be pretty okay to use on her as well, because it does have a large amount of crit damage. So if you have a good amount of crit rate already, or you want to run like a crit rate hat, something like that, I think it could be pretty good to run on here. Right here is basically going to, whenever you hit with an elemental skill, it's going to give you one of these stacks. That is going to increase your elemental skill damage. And then once you get all 3 stacks, it's going to give you 12% all elemental damage bonuses. So it could be pretty good. You might have to use like the press skill a few times to get up to this fast enough. But still using the hold skill, it's only like a 6-second cooldown. But yeah, anyway, that's going to be it for my Nahida main DPS build guide. I know it's kind of a meme, but it actually could be pretty good, especially if you do max out Nahida and get a lot of her constellations. I think she'll be a pretty good actual DPS, honestly. And that's basically because all of the Archons are. But anyway, I will see you all in the next one. Farewell.